Hi, I'm Lauren Breichel with Spartan Investment Group, and today I'm here with Ben Lapidus, our Director of Acquisitions, and we want to talk about feasibility and due diligence. So we have a lot of conversations about contract timelines, and one of the biggest questions we get is how do we define the difference between feasibility and due diligence?
Yeah, so thanks, Lauren. Ben Lapidus, Director of Finance and Acquisitions. We do get that question a lot because it's not standard to the marketplace. So let's start with, what is the difference between the two? Feasibility to us at Spartan is the ability to be able to execute our business plan. It's everything outside the seller or the broker's world that might affect our ability to buy. It's doing competitive market analysis. It's looking at the population income data, understanding the demographics, understanding the revitalization of that neighborhood perhaps. It's just everything that is kind of external risk outside of the scope of the deal itself. Due diligence focuses on internal risk specific to the deal, and that has everything to do with the seller and everything to do with the broker. If we don't get the materials on time, we can't conduct due diligence. If everything is not true and accurate, then we have an issue. So due diligence for us is just making sure everything is true and accurate. It's the process of verification. Feasibility for us is just making sure that we can execute our business plan.
Perfect. So we usually break the two out, which isn't typical for the industry. So why do we do that?
Yeah, so it's not, and the reason again is kind of down to what is each element. If feasibility is not specific to the seller, if that has everything to do with us and our ability to execute our business plan within the environment, we don't want the seller to be contracted to our evaluation process. We know that that's not the seller's responsibility, it's ours. So we like to have that done in advance of going to contract. But we like to make sure that we're only doing that work after we've got a gentleman's agreement. So our process is we submit an LOI. Once it's approved or agreed upon, we conduct feasibility, and then we go to contract. And then we conduct our due diligence. And that abbreviates our due diligence time frame. I mean, we still have a 554-point due diligence list, but it abbreviates it.
Yes. So what does a timeline end up looking like for this process?
Yeah, so a timeline for feasibility is only a couple of weeks. It's about the same amount of time as it takes to get a contract together. We just don't like to be duplicitous and say, hey, we're doing all this work, and then, just because the market's not doing anything during that time frame, and we don't want to, we want to say what we're doing. And so it only takes a couple of weeks. In the due diligence time frame, we do a little bit longer, I think, than some of the more aggressive folks, about 40 to 45 business days. But that's because we're dependent on third-party inspection companies. If they could do things faster, we could do things faster. And when they do, we often close early. And on our last deal, we closed 3 weeks ahead of time because the inspector was able to get that out there in week 2. And I think all of this, even though it's a little bit of a training exercise with some sellers in getting them used to 2 different periods, ultimately is why we're able to brag about our 100% contract to close ratio, which we still are able to maintain. And it's also why we've been able to maintain such great relationships going forward with both brokers and sellers, and we can do repeat transactions with them because once they get it, they appreciate our approach.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much for explaining that, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
Okay.